Today we're joined again by Ruta, but this time we are going to talk specifically about her experience working in Japan. So Ruta, welcome again. And did you find it hard to work in Japan, or?
It wasn't that easy to work in Japan, and even finding a job was always quite a big challenge for me.
Practically, how did you find a job? Because we know there's a whole process that you have to go through, and it is very different from all other countries. I don't think there's another country that has the same process that you have to go through step by step in order to find a job. Could you please take us there?
Yeah, so when Japanese are in their third grade, usually in university, they start doing so-called shukatsu. Shukatsu is activities to search for a job. They have to attend many so-called kaisha setsumekai. This is some explanatory events held by the companies where they explain what kind of companies they are, and they ask some questions to the people who go there and are interested to find a job in that company. So it's really very special thing in Japan, and most of Japanese goes through this to find a job. I wasn't researching a lot about this shukatsu, so I thought that it's okay just to go there well dressed a bit formally, maybe, and yes, to listen to what the companies are explaining, maybe give some questions. So first time when I was still a student, I went to one of the shukatsu, and I noticed that there were around 40, maybe more young Japanese, and all were dressed in the same black suits, really the same black suits, and everyone was carrying the same bags and having very similar things to write to the notebooks and something like that. And I wasn't dressed in the black suit. I was dressed formally, but I was the only one who was foreigner and not dressed in those special suits. So I felt a bit awkward there.
Just I want to ask you straight this. Well, what was the reaction of the people present there, either the people looking for the job and the people explaining, so the people from the company, when they saw you, like you were completely outstanding from the other people, like not dressing in the proper code? What was the reaction?
Yeah, everyone was watching me, but pretending not to watch me, and they thought that I'm not noticing that. So I usually don't. I don't know. I'm used that everyone is watching me in Japan, but that time when about 50 people were watching me and saying silently that you are not doing it in the right way, it was a bit of a pressure for me.
So you didn't do any preparation whatsoever for the shukatsu? You didn't do any preparation? Yeah.
No, this was just my first experience, which wasn't very nice one. So after that, I started to read what is shukatsu and how one has to dress for the shukatsu, or how one has to act for the shukatsu. So I learned something, but all the time I wasn't like the usual Japanese dressed in that black suit. I was dressed in black suit, but not in that special black suit, because I didn't want to be the same like everyone, and I wasn't so, because I was a foreigner. But yeah, I was reading a lot about every company I went to. I was preparing the questions. Yeah, all these ceremonial.
So how many companies did you go through before you actually found a job?
Quite a lot, because I wasn't sure where I would like to work. So I didn't want to just end up in a random company where I didn't like. So I don't know, maybe 30, maybe more.
Which that's a lot. I want to say this clearly, that not everybody goes through 30 companies. There's some people, they stop at the first company because they just it's not even that because they like that company. Sometimes because they just don't want to do more shukatsu. They don't want to do, because it's a bit of a work. Could you just explain it in detail what you have to do? So you have to search every company, and then what you have to write also by hand your resume. You have to write why do you want to work there. Yeah, explain that a little bit.
First you choose the companies where you want which you want to visit. Then you apply for the visit. Then they send that it's okay to come. Then you choose the dates. Some of them have special platforms for that. Some of them do it by email, so it's extra work. And then for every company, you have to write a different resume by hand, not printed, because you have to show that you made many efforts to for that company. And then you have to write also the why do you want to enter this company in that resume, and then you have to give it during this meeting. Also, you have to prepare very smart questions, and also these questions have to show that you're really interested in this company and eager to work there, and you have to show what could you do for that company if you start working. But it's just the first meeting where other 50 or even sometimes 100 people take place.
And you did this 30 times?
I was still young, and
You had a lot of energy, that's for sure.
yeah, and I was a bit interested because some of companies were really shit, and some of them were quite interesting. And I went to, most of them were Japanese companies, but then I noticed that in some Japanese companies things are really weird. So I went to some international companies as well, and they weren't very different from the Japanese ones. Yeah.
And would you rate this whole process to be hard, very hard, or it's okay? I mean, you just have to apply to it and then it just works itself.
It depends on what you want. For Japanese, it's if they want to get into a quite good company, it can be quite hard. But for foreigner who is searching a job together with the Japanese, so it was a bit of a hard work for me.
So it was even harder, you think, than from the common Japanese?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because in my case, I was applying to Japanese companies, so they were expecting that I would do everything the same like Japanese, and of course, my Japanese wasn't so good as the native Japanese.
Right, because this is one thing, like many people maybe think, because I had some other experience and talking to some other people, some other foreigners, that some people think that you can actually come to Japan and work with English, which that's, that would be enough. That's not the case, right? Could you explain that you actually need some Japanese, some skill of Japanese, otherwise you wouldn't be able to work in Japan?
Yeah, it's funny thing that even to enter the companies where they say that they need a foreigner who speaks English, you have to know Japanese, because all the these explanatory meetings of the companies and also interviews are in Japanese, and sometimes you even find out that nobody knows English during the interview, and that's why they need you. So yeah, Japanese is always very necessary in Japan.
And so once you find a job, you got your first company, how was from the beginning, how was the feeling with the other people that you were working with, the other colleagues? How did you find it?
So there is quite a lot of ceremonial things in Japanese society, but because even before starting to work, you have to meet your. There is a group of people who enter the company at the same time. They are called Shinyu Shain, those who enter the company straight after the university, the new employees. So you have to be in a good relation with all of them. So you have to meet them a few times before the first day of your work. So we did these meetings, and of course I was the only foreigner between them.
What kind of meetings are these? Are these informal meetings? You go drinking, you go, I don't know, in a cafe, or you just stay in the office? How are they?
Some of them are meetings in the office where we will be working. So we also meet the people who are already working there. Then we just look around how they work. Of course, they show that they're working very happily, and the beautiful side of it.
What you're saying, what I'm interested to hear, you said you have to basically create a friendly environment between the Shinyu Shain, between the workers who start working at the same time, correct? And how do you do that?
At first day when we meet all together, at first day we made jikoshokai, then we told why we applied for this company, what our motivation is, and then we all went for nomikai with also other employees who were working there already. And yeah, during the nomikai, Japanese drink a lot, they become a bit more open and talking a bit more. So this is how they become like one friendly group.
And how long did you stay in the first company?
For half a year. That's very short for Japanese. I was always interested in fashion, so I applied for the first company for the apparel companies who make clothes for big Japanese brands. So I thought that it would be interesting because I would be also close to the design and making clothes, but then it all ended up that most of the people working there were men. I first didn't understand. I thought that maybe men like fashion more in Japan than women, but then I noticed that the working hours are quite long. There are a lot of overtime work, and no one's paying for that, and also no design or imagination, just you do the same clothes and models every season, and just entering a bit boring data to the like
you
list.
thought it would be some sort of an artistic work, you could put some creativity in it, but it was something like very standard you had to follow. It was a routine, basically. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because they were really good at these kaisha setsumekai. They were showing that it's really a great job with a lot of interesting new things with the designs you can think yourself. And then all ended up that I was in the men's suits division, which doesn't have a lot of creativity.
One thing that I think people can get from this is that you have to be really careful when you do one of these meetings, when the company introduces itself to the people who want to work for the company. And then you have to be careful to skim through what it looks like really good, but it's really not. It's like, it's a bit of like a matching up. So people who have these pictures that don't really look like themselves. You know what I'm saying? And then
Yeah.
when you actually meet them, they really don't look like their pictures.
Yeah, it's really close to that, and yeah, everything looked really nice, and that company also liked me. They said that Ruta, we find it really nice that you look a bit different. You looked a bit different in that company meeting because I wasn't wearing the usual suit, and we think that you are really creative and you could work here because it's an apparel company, and you came not with a boring suit. But then when I entered, I noticed that everything is the same like in any other company.
So one of the questions that actually, one of the comments that we got from the previous videos, and somebody wanted to know, because you mentioned just now about the overtime work, okay? And so there's a lot of talk about this overtime work. Is it real? Is it not real? I'm sure it's real. But the thing is this all this overtime, does it translate to productivity?
Shortly said no. There is no productivity in Japan. That's why everyone is always tired when going to work by trains, always sleeping on trains or sleeping everywhere where they have opportunity. And yes, it's quite difficult situation with this overtime, which doesn't lead to any productivity in Japan.
Well, what would you speculate would be a reason? Why would you think? Is that because they just like to show their boss that they're just working, they're in the office until 2 hours after the actual working time? Is that because the boss, because this is stuff that I heard from other people, of course, sometimes there is this pressure from just the mere fact that your boss is inside the office, that you supposedly not allowed to leave. So could you tell me like a few reasons why do you think this overtime work is just basically not so productive in the end?
Maybe one of the most important reasons is this hierarchy in Japanese society, because well, everyone thinks that you cannot leave before the one who is superior to you. So if you enter the company as a new employee, everyone is superior to you. And so if they don't leave the company, then you can't leave before them, because you will be looked like, what are you doing? Are you crazy? And then the other day you can get some not very nice comments about that, or some people even get, I don't know, I heard stories that some even get less money if they go home, even though they don't have any work to do, because of their family life. I was talking about that also in the previous video, because Japanese, especially men, don't want to go home because there is no happy family. So they prefer just to spend their time at the company and waiting until the late evening, and then going to the nomikai with their co-workers, and then going back home just late at night, because they are also not very welcome there. No one's waiting for them. Yeah, so that's sad.
It looks like we cannot talk about work if we don't talk about actual like family life or romantic love in Japan, because it seems like the two to be connected. If you don't have a happy life, romantic life with a partner, it seems like, you know, your job becomes your love, basically your relationship. Something.
Yeah, exactly. And I noticed just one thing, which is really right, that work is even more important than family or partner or love in Japan. So it's very natural. And if I would say that work is not so important for me, then I would be seen as a stranger that doesn't understand how everything works in Japanese society.
If you had to give some advices to people, foreigners specifically, looking for a job in Japan, well, what would you tell them?
So now when I see my shukuts and my own failures in Japan, I could recommend that if you are a foreigner and your Japanese is still not perfect, you should probably search only for international companies, because in Japanese companies, it's really, the atmosphere is very traditional Japanese in a not very good way. And in the international companies, there are usually more foreigners, so you will be not alone and you would not be seen as a stranger there. It will be easier everyday working. And the other thing is that you shouldn't act like too much Japanese, because if you do that, you would be even asked to be more Japanese than you you have been during the interviews, and you won't be able to feel like yourself because you're not Japanese at the end. So yeah, maybe these two advices.
How was your relationship with your colleagues? Because that's something that I mean, people may find it like one of the things that are, especially Japanese, that I found that are attracted by a certain company, a certain job. It's because of the colleagues. And so you have, this is my experience anyway, but you have happy Japanese because they have friends within their colleagues. How was your case? What was your relationship with your colleagues? Were you able to ever make friends with them, or was the relationship more superficial?
In the company where there were only Japanese, well, I had some friends, but at the end, I noticed that they weren't such a good friends. They were maybe more interested in me as a foreigner because I was different, because I had a different cultural background. But then sometimes you notice that they're just friendly because it needs to be so. So I was always in the best relationship with the people who are not Japanese, with the foreigners. And when there were foreigners in my company, I was always very happy, because no matter from what country, we were always feeling very close to each other, and yeah, having a.
Did you ever kept in contact with anybody, any colleague of your past work from your past companies?
Yeah, I still I still do. And then I now remembered and noticed while working in Japan that sometimes you become very good friends even with Japanese if you have the same if you hate your boss samely, like if Japanese hate it and hate him or her and you hate him or her, then you have a lot of topics that you can talk about and the same like emotional feelings about your boss. So with these Japanese, I'm even now in a very good relation.
That's a great way to start a friendship. You have to have a common enemy. I mean, usually.
Yeah,
Then tell us a bit about the nomikai, this routine of drinking after work.
yeah, actually, not many foreigners who don't know Japanese culture well notice that nomikai is a really very important part of working in Japan, not having fun, but working. Because at first you have the first nomikai where you get to know each other better, all the people who are working in the nomikai, and then nomikai becomes something very like usual, because there is usually nomikai on Fridays before the weekend, and most of the nomikais are usually obligatory. You have to take part in the nomikai no matter if you want or not. If you don't want, you still have to go there. And sometimes some nomikai are even happens even more often. And there are also nomikai with all together, then nomikai with just a few people. And in the nomikais, you usually talk about work, but you are able to talk about it more openly and to express your opinion, which is not allowed in the company on working hours. And one thing that I didn't like about nomikai is that you have to go there no matter what. And the other thing that usually the superiors make you to drink a lot, and they see how much can you drink, and no matter that you can't drink anymore, you have to drink because your superior tells you drink this and you have to do that. So I was really a bit scared when I was watching this. Of course, I didn't do that, and I said that I don't drink. I drink, but not that much. So it's better to see that I can't drink at all.
So even if there's a woman boss, would she still have her male subordinate drink?
It's actually a bit difficult to imagine, because usually in Japanese society, even males can become superior. The women don't get very important roles in the companies. So in my experience and in the cases I know, it's usually male bosses or superiors forcing their usually male employees to drink. But sometimes it would even happen that they say to the women employees that you have to drink it and show how strong you are, or something like that. So,
but
yeah.
To your experience, what would be the point of that?
I don't know, but this thing is really very I don't know, very important part in Japanese culture, because even when you meet new people, one of the first question would be, how strong are you when you drink alcohol? How much can you drink? It's one of the, like, what's your name? And the next question, this one. Sometimes they even lose their conscious. And one time I saw it and I even thought that maybe my coworker is already dead. And then the boss was just saying, don't worry, it's everything okay. It's just a part of Japanese culture. You just don't understand that. So one of the reasons also was when I was quitting the job, that I can't see these nomikais. And when I'm forced to take part in these kind of things, it's a bit too difficult for me. So he just said, Ruta, you will never understand that because you are not Japanese. So it was enough for me. But it's also a sad story that every year some people die from this overdosing of the alcohol in the nomikai, but no one says that it's said that it just happened, but no one mentions that it was forced action.
Yeah, and sometimes the nomikai could also be a mean of try to actually communicate, because it's very hard for Japanese to communicate with all the using of keigo, of the formal language. They like to relax their language to an informal level, and that maybe be one of the purpose of this nomikai.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point you noticed, because Like when you don't have to be official anymore and you drink a bit, you relax yourself. So the real communication starts. And now I know, I remember that in Japanese, they sometimes use a lot of English words. So communication is communication. And they also say it's like playing with the words nominication. So nomikai, nominication.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much again, Ruta. And we hope to talk to you again. Bye bye.
Yeah, see you. Bye.